Hello. Hi
Hi.
there. Can
Hi,
you hear me?
Erza. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well. How are
Okay,
you?
good.
How are you today?
I am very good. I just did my first live with Calista to practice. So now I'm ready to talk to you.
Okay. Well, we have a few audience already, and so hi, Susi. Susi Suprantio from Plaza Indonesia is here watching.
Yeah, and I see Maggie just joined. Hi, Maggie.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean today it's both of our first EG live, and since I put it on my Instagram stories and to ask about my follower if they are interested to know more about art or what is art or who is art. So I was thinking that you are the best person that I know in my life that be able to talk more about this matter.
Ah, thank you. We do have a long history, that's for sure. Don't tell them about the first time we met. That's for another
That
one.
was another story of Instagram live, isn't it?
Yes, definitely, definitely.
I need to request you to speak a bit slowly because my followers are mostly fluent in Bahasa, but this will be a good learning lesson for them to see our life in English. So since you're having a quite a strong American, Southern American accent, so please bear in mind to speak a bit slowly and Hans, Hans Susantio, say hi.
Yeah, hi,
Now,
Hans. I just saw him too.
yeah. My first question. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you interested with art on the first place because I know you didn't graduate as an artist or from art school, right?
Right. No, I actually started out life as an international tax lawyer. So go figure how I ended up in art. And it's just a serendipitous, I think. So I was living in Hong Kong as a banker, making a pretty decent disposable income. And I had been to an art gallery in San Francisco during a layover. And I loved the art, and it was Russian art. And I had a minor in Russian. And I met the girl there, spent many hours with her, and then after that, one day in Hong Kong, my boyfriend goes, "Oh, let's go to this art exhibition." It was the same gallery and the same girl. And that's just fate. So, that's when I bought my first painting. And then it became an addiction. She was very good at selling as well. So I would literally buy a painting a month. And
But
she would educate me about Russian artists and who were the top names and things like that. So that's how I got started.
from tax lawyer to art, what is so exciting about art to you personally?
Well, I think the key about art is like music. If something speaks to you, a lot of people are crazy about music, about bands, about Rolling Stones. They can tell you everything about the band. And for me, art is the same way. I live it, I breathe it. When I travel, I always go to museums, I go to galleries. A lot of my travel is art related. Like I tell my husband, "Oh, let's go to Taipei," and just coincidentally was the Taipei Art Fair. So it's a passion, and every time you look at art, you see something different. And what appeals to me may not appeal to you, and vice versa. But that's a topic for conversation for
Mm.
later. Why do you like it? Why don't you like it? And it's the social aspect is very fun. Traveling to art fairs, going to exhibitions, you meet a lot of very interesting people, and you just open your mind to all sorts of endless possibilities about the way people see the world through pictures.
Uh, I see that our famous art restorator Michaela Anselmini is online. How, Michaela? Ciao.
Hi, Michaela. No,
Now, you has been a person in Indonesia that is regarded as an expert in art. Now, from tax lawyer into an art industry, can you share us a little bit about your career and how you can made it into that position and to your current your own company now?
okay.
Short,
So
short
I'll
story.
give you a short history. So I came to Indonesia as an investment banker, and
Hmm?
then my husband was also an investment banker, so he married the competition. So after we got married, I had to look for a new job. And so I went to the first Christie's auction back in 1994, and unfortunately, I'm showing my age now. And I met the
Sorry,
manager.
what is Christie's for those who doesn't know?
Christie's is the international auction house, that sells the, $100 million Picassos and the $450 million Da Vinci. So it's an international auction house. And they had just set up in Singapore. And when I went to the auction in 1994, I met the managing director and literally almost as a lark said, "Oh, if you want to open an office in Indonesia, let me know. I'd be glad to help." And he called me a week later and said, "Were you serious?" And at that time, I was the representative. So I didn't have to know a lot about art, but I had to know a lot of people. So as an
Mm,
investment banker, I knew all the business owners because of banking deals.
mm.
So I was, quite frankly, probably the perfect person because I had a background in art. I had opened a gallery in New York dealing in Russian art, which didn't compete with anything, Christie's was doing in Indonesia. So I had a background in art, I had a knowledge of art, and so I opened the Christie's office in 1996, and that was
Wow.
it. So almost 20 years I ran the auction houses. I went to Christie's for 12 and then moved over to Sotheby's.
Which is
And
the biggest competitor of Christie's, right?
competitor of Christie's. So I opened both at various times. I set up the first Sotheby's office here. They had a rep before, but didn't have a proper office. So I did that. And after, like I said, almost 20 years, I decided I needed change in life. I wasn't going to get any higher than being the director here because I'm married with children. So it's not like I could transfer to anywhere else. So I left and set up my own business. And I started out as an art consultant, Erza Art Advisory, because I wanted to really help advise clients on what art to choose from anything in the world. It doesn't have to be Indonesian art. It could be Western art, uh, European art. I sold a few boteros in my career, Latin American art. So I started as an advisory. But as it progressed, I would do pop-up shows. I was actually Hosodo Farpoint gave me my first job as the art consultant for Farpoint, and then Jakarta Land, and then I helped the British Embassy, so Citibank. So it slowly started growing. But along the way, I discovered a lot of artists that I like. I saw, especially female artists.
Mm-hmm.
And so only this year have we opened a proper gallery. So we rebranded it Erza Art and Design. So it's a gallery, but we also advise corporates on art for their office or individuals as well.
Okay.
To collect art.
Before before we continue talking about your company, first and foremost, let's talk about the title of this live Instagram that we are planning today. What is art? How do you make an easy definition for those of people who cannot understand what is art, which one is art and which one is not, and like how can normal people with no background of art can understand what is art?
Okay, that's a loaded question. What is art? Basically,
I hear buzzing sound from you. What is going on?
no, I don't hear it. Maybe it was Kalista moving around, but I think we're okay now.
Okay.
Okay, so what is art? I think if you look back, I'll just give you a short history. Art can be defined in a few things. You've got fine art, which is basically the most established artist. Okay, so those are the artists
I
that.
cannot hear your voice, Deb. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Yes, much
Okay,
better. Okay,
so
can you?
you have fine art, which is basically the art that you would see in museums, that
Okay.
you would see in some of the top galleries around the world. Uh, but mostly look at the ones in the.
Everything in the museum is called fine art.
Basically, yes,
In
because that would go
yes.
back from early history, from 19th century art up to Impressionist.
Okay.
So that's what you would call the fine art. Modern art is art that was produced between 1860 and 1970. So basically, that would be from Cezanne, the Impressionist, to Picasso, to de Kooning, on up. And then you have contemporary art, are basically live artists working today, um, that were, started producing art after 1970. So
Okay.
that's how we would define it roughly.
Let me stop you there. Let me do a
Okay.
recap.
Okay.
So before 1865, it's all fine art. I mean, Renaissance
Yeah.
and everything, fine
Yes.
art.
Yeah.
Or we call it as the classic art.
Yes.
And then in 1865 until 1965 is the modern art.
Yes.
Okay, so from 1965 until today is the contemporary.
In 1970, but yes. So
Wow.
basically, living artist or
Okay,
artists
so
that were.
to all our audience here, that's pretty much in the nutshell of what is art. So you know what is produced. Before that, it's called classic art or fine art. And then we have the modern art era. What do you think after 20 years from now? What will be this era being called? No longer modern, no?
I think it would still be contemporary, but I think the needle will keep moving along with the dates, right? Because basically, contemporary art is what's being produced today. Living artists producing art today that reflects our world today. So, for example, if you look, the new trend in art right now is new media art. So,
Okay.
photography, digital art, installation. So I think that's going to be the trend going forward, and not
Oh,
as much emphasis is put on painting per se.
okay.
So I think the 21st century is all going to be about new media art.
So it's also connected to the civilization of humankind with what is new in our life. And so technology has made it into part of the art these days.
Yes, exactly. And very much so, because now you have like video artists, you have entire museum shows dedicated to video artists. Like Tramarama is probably the most famous Indonesian video artist collective. It's a group of 3 artists working together in Bandung. And if there's any show on video art, Asian video art, Southeast Asian video art, Tramarama would always be included. They've been
Okay.
at the Mori Art Museum, Liverpool, around the world.
So let me stop you there. Let me just share it with the audience here. Guys, if you have any question, just type it out and then you can ask all the art related question. Now, what Deborah just said just now, that video is a new medium that can be a type of good art, like Troma Rama is Indonesian based artist. So you have your smartphone, right? So you have a video feature there. So maybe you might want to try to work on your mobile phone and do art video from there, right, Deborah?
You
Maybe.
probably could. Actually, with the quality of the phones nowadays, yes, you could. There's another Indonesian artist. He's more of a photographer called Agan Harahap. And
Agan.
he does, and Agan is known for his fake news. So if you go to his feed, he will have all these postings, and it looks like it could be real, but then you look at it going, that didn't really happen. I mean,
Okay.
a perfect example, he did a photograph one time of Mike Tyson fighting Muhammad Ali. Looks
Oh,
logical, right? But they
yeah.
never fought, right? It's a totally different generation, right? So
So
that's the type of new media art
it's
too.
like a manipulation.
Yes. And he
I
always manipulates it on his photographs. So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at new media art.
now.
And you, yeah.
Yes.
No, I was going to say, and you can use it. Like we're working on a hotel project right now. Um, Hopefully, we're going to put video art in the lobby, which could be cool. And then somebody just said, I can harp out Joko Wee is a punk rockster. Yes, but see,
Yes.
that's different. Joko Wee actually is a punk rockster, right? He
Yeah.
actually loves Guns N' Roses. But I loved it when Agan did Joko Wee and Justin Bieber together, right? Because they could have met, but maybe not. Justin Bieber hasn't been here, right? So it's things like that.
Now, I want to ask you a very basic question. Do you think everybody can be an artist? Because we see these days so many new group of young people that suddenly declare they are an artist. What is the criteria of being an artist, or how do you become an artist?
Okay, I think I think everybody can be an artist, but like everything else, you have to train for your craft. If you want to
Mm,
be an engineer, you go to school to be an engineer. If you
okay.
want to be a doctor, you go to school. To be an artist, normally you would try to join a fine art course just to learn the basics of execution, how to draw, how to paint, how to do photography, right? And so from there, then you can develop your own practice, okay? A perfect example is my son, Kakoa, went to fashion school at Parsons, right? In the first year foundation course, he had to take a drawing course. He had to take an advertising course. He had a theory course called Time. What is time? How do you draw time? How do you respect time? How do you think about time? So being an artist, you really have to have deep thoughts and have an idea and a passion to create something new, right?
Mm,
So it's good if you could have the advantage of going to art school, but it's not a be-all, end-all. Like, you can't be an engineer without going to school, but you can be an artist if you've got what we call raw talent, and
Mm.
then you look to develop it. And I think nowadays you can develop it because you've got YouTube, and we've got courses we can take. 20 years ago, you didn't have that, right?
Okay.
So I think it's a lot easier to be an artist these days.
Mm.
Um, there will always be self-taught artists, but if you want to really be an artist, I would encourage you to go to school just to learn your craft. And then it comes through experience.
Okay, so let me just stop you there and do a quick recap. So guys, if you are inspired to be an artist, you actually can. I mean, like YouTube now is like a free school for all. However, you need a raw talent and you need experience, and still, like Deborah said, a good institution of art will still brings you miles away because that will give you the foundation of becoming a good artist. But now talking about new artists and new generation, can you mention a few of our Indonesian young talent that you like, or that is famous in the industry, or other gallery, or also the auction house like Christie's and Sotheby's look at or interested on?
Okay, I think we can start in a few ways. Okay, modern art we all know, Effendi, Hendra, Sujono. That was the beginning of art in Indonesia, because art is not indigenous to Indonesian culture. Like oil on canvas painting only came basically in the early 20th century, because in 19th century it was only Raden Saleh, that was it. And because
Oh,
he had money to travel to Europe, right?
oh,
So the beginning of Indonesian art really only started with like Sugiono, Hendra, Effendi in the 1930s.
Hendra Gunawan, you mean?
Yeah, Hendra Gunawan. So Sugiono is known as the father of modern Indonesian art. He started in the 1930s, and then you had Effendi, Hendra on up to the 1950s. And they were very blessed because Sukarno, our first president, was crazy about art.
Oh,
Right? He has an amazing collection. So it used to be every year during the Jokowi period, they would put the Sukarno collection on view. So Indonesia actually has an amazing collection of early modern art, not just Indonesian art, but Southeast Asian and international. So you can go to the National Gallery. But in answer to your question, okay, after the first generation of modern artists, then you have contemporary artists. Some of the most established contemporary artists are a few. There's Aaron Dwi Hartanto, Scenario, that's Scenario's son.
mm-hmm.
He is working in a medium of wood on resin, resin on wood, which is it's a new medium. It's a 21st century medium, doing these beautiful abstract works. You also have like Sinta Tantra. She's an Indonesian artist based in London. She's known as a muralist. So if you
Mm.
see the Canary Wharf Bridge in London, that was actually painted by an Indonesian artist. Of course, there's our senior contemporary, a generation older, like Arab Mani, Harry Dono, who are also FX Harsono, known in an international stage. So it goes by generation. So first generation contemporary would be like Harry Dono, Arab Mani, that group. Second generation would be Aaron, Shinta, Handy Weirman, the Padang group, because they're in their mid, 40, just turning 40, 41, 42. Then you have your really young contemporary Indonesian artists, which there's a lot. There's Rega Ayundia, who we've worked with. There's Etza out of Bandung. There's so many right now. So, and you can go see them at like the art fairs. Well, this year our art fairs are on hold, but the galleries you can still go and see as well. And they're all working in different types of mediums, which makes it interesting, from
Mm.
installation to glass to textile. So the range is quite broad right now.
Okay, now let's answer one question from my friend Kum Hong, who is Singaporean based in. I mean, he was also part of the consultant for Ciputra Entrepreneur. He's
Mm-hmm.
asking, I think we are in the realm of visual arts. Maybe a discussion of what is art from the artist and consumer's perspective. Interesting. What do you?
I mean, art from the artist perspectives, artists are always looking to tell a story, right? Writers tell a story through words, musicians tell a story through song, and artists tell a story through their artwork, be it painting, be it photography, be it installation. So it's about storytelling. So when you're looking at
Wait,
modern
wait.
art,
So it's like making an Instagram posting is all about storytelling.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Ah,
And sometimes whatever paintings or photos you put up could actually be art as well. So
okay.
art is about storytelling, right? Um, and so for there, then as an artist, the way I look at artists, if it appeals to me, are you telling a new story? Are you looking at something in a new way? So it's not just technical ability to execute it, but it's intellectual ability to tell a story,
Mm,
right, in a way that appeals to people. So I think, when I look at something, if I look at a painting and the first thing I think is, oh, it looks like Picasso, it's probably not good art because it's basically copying Picasso, or
okay.
looks like Kendra Gunawan, or looks like a Fondi, right? It's not just Western art. If you look at something and it reminds you of something else, then move
Mm,
on, okay, because it's not an original story. That's why artists, for example, that do landscapes, portraits, have a hard time going into the fine art realm, because if you've been to art school, you can paint a landscape, right? It's
okay.
how do you execute that landscape? Do you look at it in a different way? Do you tell a different story? Is it so there's a lot of ways to tell a story.
Okay. And so, but first and foremost, a good story concept is necessary.
Yes, for me, yes.
Okay. And how do you see the Indonesian market so far with the art
Oh, it's
um,
got huge
collector?
potential. I mean, we've got actually a strong collector base, which is good. And we have had, since the auctions helped open up the market, and then you had the galleries coming in. So Indonesia actually has a strong collector base. I think also by the sheer size of the population, we also have a lot of very good artists.
Okay.
Right. So I think we're one of the tops. A lot of Southeast Asian collectors actually collect Indonesian art as well. I was on the phone earlier today with a Thai collector looking for Indonesian art. So Indonesian art is not just for Indonesian collectors. And I
Mm,
think that's another point I can give a tip, is sometimes if you look at the art, it has to be able to communicate in an international voice as well. If
okay.
it's too Indonesian or too parochial, it might do well for the Indonesian market, but it won't appeal to the Western collectors. And it's hard to describe it, but like, look at Harry Dono. He
Yeah.
uses wayang,
That,
but the
yeah. How,
way he tells the story is more like, I mean, it could almost be like, space figures. It's appealing and interesting to Western collectors as well. Whereas if it was just a naturalistic wayang, you
then
know,
it's
uh,
art.
it's not interesting, right? But Harry Dono has created his own wayangs to tell a story. So I think that's what I found in the auction houses as well. The artworks that appealed to the contemporary artworks that appealed to the foreign collectors, it had an Indonesian basic, but it had a more worldly story.
So what you're saying is that you need to have that I mean, to use what we have as an Indonesian in within our culture and within our heritage is good, but then you have to transform it into something new, something fresh, and something original, right? That
Correct.
international can connect.
Yes, correct.
And we have another question here from Yuzen, and I think this person is a painter. Hi Deborah, I'm Sela. I'm started to pursue art as professional career last year, but I'm not coming from the art related education. So I have limited connection or network. How do I marketing my art?
Okay.
Well, this is like a question from all the new young art around the world.
Yeah. Okay. First thing, of course, is marketing is very important. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, it's not just what you like and what one person likes, but does it appeal to a wide audience? As an artist, it's hard work.
No.
Okay. It is very hard work. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise, especially if you were self-taught and you don't come from an artistic background where you would have a following already,
Mm,
right? For example, some fashion designers can become artists because they have a background in art and they have, in design that can
Mhm.
translate to a fine art field. Graphic designers have an easier time moving over into the art world because they've got, appeal as a graphic. So you have to be able to tell your own story as well. It's a lot easier these days, I think, with Instagram and social media because you can get your name out there a lot quicker than the traditional gallery system.
Mm.
But otherwise, it's just hard work. You have to go around to every gallery, show them your work, see if they're interested, and don't be put off if they say no, because they have a lot of artists doing that too. It's very tough.
Do
Okay.
you think that
Um,
a gallery already, I mean, do you think that the career as an artist will be better if it's represented by a gallery, or like do it yourself, like this is the millennial vibe, the DIY hashtag that can also work as good as a gallery representation?
Well, that's the interesting question right now, is the role of the galleries is changing as well, because a lot of artists, once they become well known, think they can do it themselves, which they can, but then you also need you need other people to support you,
Mm.
right? And it's the galleries that are investing in the art fairs to get your name to a bigger audience, right? So everybody has their place in the ecosystem. There's the curators as well that are always looking for art that tells the story that they want to tell. So there is a big ecosystem, and right now, quite frankly, it is changing, and I'm excited to see which way it goes. But in answer to your question, as a young artist, you just have to work hard and try to get your name and your art out there in front of as many people as possible. And social media is a very good step.
Talking about that, I see you do a great collaboration combining social media and find an artist, which bring to our dear friend Alexander Tian, aka Amazing. And he's a famous social media persona and he's known for his photography style. But like, how do you see his work as an art? Because he wasn't even think that he's an artist to begin with. And then like can you tell a story? I mean, now this is about telling a
Mhm.
story. So yeah, what is the story behind that? Because that is interesting, because he's millennial, he's successful in social media, he has tons of followers, and now he's becoming an artist, and that is possible, right?
Yes, and I have to say thank you to you, Erza, because you introduced us. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about storytelling.
Mm.
Okay. Yes, Alex didn't start as an artist, but he started as a storyteller, right?
Mm.
He is also very talented as a photographer.
Mm.
So once you introduced us, I started looking at his photographs going, wow, these are very interesting, because a lot of people can take a very good photograph. If you have the right equipment and the right, equipment is very expensive too. You have to invest in the right equipment to get the right output, right? But it's not just being able to take a photograph of a landscape. It's how you take it, right? And if you talk to Alex, when we first started making, I'd look at his photos, wow, this is amazing. In Japan, the way he took the photographs, it looks almost like abstract art.
Mm.
It looks like a flower, but it's not. He likes to edit things. I think one of my favorite is the Duyung, that he did. He was in Alors, and there was a Duyung, and it was very hard to see them. In the way he took the photo, it looked almost from like Jurassic Park, right? You wouldn't imagine it's a contemporary photo that he had just taken on a holiday in Alors, right? And so I think, like I said, they have to do something different, right? And if you talk to Alex, there's one photo we did of a stained glass church in Russia, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then he was telling me the story. He had to lay on the ground behind the pillar, wait till people got out of the way. It would take him like 3 hours to get the perfect shot. And
Mm.
that's an artist, okay? It's not just about executing, it's about patience. It's getting the right shot, the right thing. And so then, if you remember, we showed Alex's work at Art Jakarta, and the title of the exhibition was Let Me Tell You a Story.
Which is
So
his favorite.
his favorite thing. And it wasn't just the photograph. So below the photograph, he told his story, how he got the photo, what was interesting about it, of course, his quirks and his, he's got a very wicked sense of humor, right? And so it was a hit, and I love it. Clients that bought it still love it. There's one in a very famous collector's office right now, the Black Pink, right?
Mm.
And he just loves it. Everybody that comes in there loves this photo of the Black Pink, and it's actually the Sydney Opera House. And Alex is there going, wow, this is amazing. I wonder what it would look like if Blackpink played here. And so then he said, I'll just make it my own. So he turned the Sydney Opera House pink. Okay, that's art. That's, you know, the Sydney Opera House isn't pink. And so it's things like that that, you know, that make it, take it to the realm of contemporary art. There's a Thai artist, the Pink Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Manjit Srivastava. I pronounce his last name terrible because I don't know Thai. But Manjit, you Google it, the Pink Man. And
The
he
pink.
started out wearing pink to bring attention to the consumerism in Thailand. And he did that 20 years ago, right? His first foray was in 1997, right? And granted, he did study as a visual artist, but then he was in the San Paulo Biennale. These photographs have become a very good collector's item, right? So there is a way, never say never, but you have to have what I say, that raw talent, that ability to tell the story about it. Okay,
Now,
now, go ahead.
on a different medium now, a dear friend of mine, Riani Jangkaru, another famous social media person and also a great photographer, by the way, she's asking, hi, Deborah, in your opinion, is there any Indonesian ceramicist that caught your attention? I know you've been working with one.
Yes. I have been working with one for a while, and in Indonesia, there used to be a ceramics biennale that was once a year that
Oh,
was quite interesting, but none of the artists really continued that I'm aware of. Okay, I'm sure they're still working. There was one senior ceramist out of Bandung. He's like, I think he's passed away now. That was brilliant, but it was more not fine art, but more decorative as well. So there are a few working in this, and I think it's a very interesting area to look at because it's a different medium, right? Picasso did ceramics, right?
yes, about that.
So he did painting, he did ceramics. So I think it's a medium that artists should look at and explore, but even in that, they should have their own identity. Okay, what story are they telling? And how does it relate to them or our environment, or you know, and how is it executed as well? So I do think there is interest. I think for collectors, to be perfectly honest, even when I was in the auction house, ceramics are a difficult medium to collect because they're, by their very nature, they're fragile.
Okay.
And even clients wouldn't buy Chinese ceramics, even though if you had bought Chinese ceramics 20 years ago, you would have made so much money, because they said, no, my maid would be polishing and knock it over, right? So it's not the easiest medium to collect or to work with, but I think there could be an interesting market for it.
Now, you mentioned a few things just now in your statement about not art enough, it's too decorative. Now, for normal people, what does it mean? I mean, I know that a real artist, if you saw that Netflix movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, Basso, and he's a severe critic, and it's just like okay, this is mediocre at best, this is just too decorative, and the artist is almost kill himself for hearing that. What does it mean? Sound like an insult.
It's a very fine line, and it's really hard to tell you. You only know it by experience. A lot of people say, how do you know? You have to realize all I've done every day for 30 years is look at art. Every day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't look at art, read about it, look at Instagram, look at artists. So you have to educate yourself, right? And it's not just educating yourself. Go to the museums. Look at the shows that are being shown in the museum. Look at the type of art. Like I said, decorative art, and I see this all the time with my corporate clients. When they're doing their new office, can I please have a paddy field or a market scene, because it's very good feng shui. And that is just purely decorative. You don't see an artist practicing today that's going to paint you a market scene or a rice paddy field. Okay. It's just too passe. So I would say it's decorative, but you know what? Every corporate wants one. Okay. So then I go to Alex. Okay, Alex, were you in Bali? Show me your rice paddy fields, right? I try to find an interesting interpretation of it, right? Which brings me to Jux Duo. And I'll tell the story of Jux Duo first, right? So Jux Duo is an artist collective with Alex and somebody else.
Well,
And
let's do there. So for all the people who is watching this, she's talking about me and Alex. We have a collaboration called Jack's Duo, which we never knew such thing could exist. But then Deborah saw, you know, when I travel with Alex, I do crazy things with my Iwan Tirta batik because I'm also the ambassador of Iwan Tirta. and do a photo shoot just for fun, really. And then until Deborah see it and insists that we have to present it as art. And I'm
Yes.
still impressed by that.
Well, I think the reason being is if you look at the photos, so y'all have to Google Erza and Alex and Jux Duo, right? Erza was the model, but you couldn't see his body, right? It would
Yeah.
just be, or you could see the top of his head. And it was just the way that the batik would flow, the way to, and if you look at the story, it's taking Iwan Tirta batik to the rest of the world. Indonesia is so rich in their heritage of textile design, of batik. That's our fine art, not oil on canvas painting. It's
Mm,
batik, it's wayang, it's dance, right?
mm,
Gamelan.
yeah.
So Erza and Alex were traveling around the world, taking these crazy photos of Erza with the batik wrapped all around him. And, you know, it'd be flying in the wind or flying, you know, through the sky. And it's just so cool. And, you know, a lot of corporates used to frame batik as art for their offices, you know, Chase, Citibank, etc. So I asked them, I said, can I use it for a project? And they loved it. And so I've actually, and it's the way they take the photos. And it's the idea that you can take Indonesian batik and travel the world with it and introduce it to new places. So it's about storytelling. And they're, you know, they just look good. So that's how Jux Duo came to be. And yes, we did their first exhibition last year in Plaza Indonesia, and hopefully we're going to do more.
Yeah, that exhibition with the art installation, that was a complete nightmare for me who has no idea how to do art. I graduated as a chemical engineer and I work in the PR, and my main job is to produce opera classical music. My art form is different. I never think myself to do art like what Deborah is doing in the fine art on repainting or photography. And then when we have to do that exhibition and have to do an art installation because Plaza Indonesia wanted that way, I was in shock because like I have no idea how to do it. I mean, like I just learned from Deborah that is actually a steps on how to present your art
Yeah.
and how to tell it. So I think to find a fine line between what is your art and then to make sure that it goes commercially, because Plaza Indonesia is very commercial. They want that space to be able to sell. And also Iwan Tirta is a commercial product and it's one of the finest batik. It's incredibly difficult to balance everything.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it was all about photography. We printed the photos on fabric. So, yeah, it was a very, y'all have to look at the photos of the installation, but it was very cool. And that's, again, it's two people that didn't start out being artists, but they're storytellers. They look at things in a different way. They execute it in a different way. And I think that's the key to developing your artistic practice.
So first find your story and then work from it. Now,
Yes.
there's another question from Sela. She's asking, how do we pricing art? What factors determining the value of today's art? That's interesting. When we did Jackson, even Alex until today, he still doesn't know like how much we should sell this. I have no idea.
Okay, that one I can quote from Renoir, who was one of the famous Impressionist paintings, has said the only value of a painting is its selling price, right? Because you could be the best artist in the world, but if nobody wants to buy it, okay, then it's not appealing to the public, or perhaps the price is too high. It is a equation. You'll never get it right completely, but generally speaking, as a young artist, it shouldn't be very expensive. And I try to encourage artists, keep it low so that everybody has a chance that just likes the art can buy it, right? And because then slowly, as you develop, then you can raise the prices slowly as well. As your technique gets better, the time it takes you gets better, the demand gets stronger, you know, prices can go up because of demand, right? So it's very hard to price it. Photography by its very nature is not expensive because it can be done in editions. So if it's one painting, maybe it would be $10,000. If it's a photograph and there's 10 in the edition, maybe it becomes $1,000, right? The net revenue would be the same, but it can be less because it's in editions, right? And sometimes you need editions to make a market. Yeah.
Let me. What is edition? What does it mean, edition?
Okay,
May-
so with a photograph, normally for fine art, an edition is a print, a reproduction that can
Oh,
produce two times. So like a sculpture has editions. Okay, because the cost of making the wax model and the clay is very expensive. So they have to cast it 6 times to divide the cost over 6, right?
I
The same
see.
with photography. You can print it 10 times, right? For fine art, everything should be an addition of 12 or less because you don't want to have too many, but there has to be enough to make a market. Okay, if it's only
Okay.
one, that's it, right? You can't. So it's a fine line there, but that's why photography, by its very nature, is not necessarily that expensive. Nor does it have the time involved, or like an artist working on a canvas, it could take them a month to do one oil on canvas painting. Whereas a photographer, yes, getting that shot is perfect, but as it doesn't take you a month. Well, it might take you a month to get the perfect shot, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's not working 1 month on one thing.
Let me
So
say hi to friends Oscar and Karini that is watching this one.
hi, Karini. Hi, Oscar.
Another interesting question from Kum Hong is that like, what about art in the commercial space? Now we see more and more, like, I live in my apartment, is right behind World Trade Center, and I see a beautiful art in the garden that I can see from my window every day. And I know that's your work, no?
Yes.
Deborah? Huh?
No, I'm about to run out of
Ah.
batteries. I'm just telling my daughter to go get my power
Oh,
bank. So give me 2 seconds. We can still talk. She's
oh.
just getting my power bank. Didn't think
Yeah,
about
so
that.
my question is like, how can your art to be chosen in the commercial space? Commercial space meaning like office building, bank, a garden. Like what is the criteria, and what does the art materials need in order to be chosen in the commercial art space like that?
Okay, I think for a commercial art space, there's 2 choices. One, for sculpture, normally the offices themselves would get involved because it would be like a public space, right? And sculpture has a very high production cost because of the materials, right? So for sculptures, people that work in it would have to be in the sculpture realm already, right? You don't just make a sculpture for the fun of it and expect to sell it. It's not that easy. I wish it was, but I wouldn't want to encourage that. But then also, sorry, you're going to lose me for a minute while I'm trying to plug in my power bank. So I think, but for corporates, a lot of corporates use art consultants like myself, and then they will ask our advice because normally corporates, unfortunately, have a very limited budget. But it suits well for photography, for young artists, where the prices are not so high. And that's what we're always looking for. And sometimes people tell you, oh, if it's a corporation, it's decorative. All art's meant to be enjoyed, okay? It's decorative in a sense that, yes, it may not be fine art because the price is not like fine art, right? But it's better than having.
Hello,
Okay,
Deborah.
there we go. I'd lost you. Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Continue about commercial space art.
So basically, with corporates, like I said before, like Chase Manhattan would decorate with batiks. They used Alex Papadimitriou, who's one of the early art dealers, to decorate their offices. And he actually sold the Mahindra back in the early 80s, but they also used a lot of batiks from their collection. So nowadays, corporates are sometimes looking at it, but it has to be very neutral. It can't be too edgy. The corporates are the ones that like the paddy fields in the marketplace, right?
Um,
But it's better to have art than no art.
how do you? I know you've been writing this for a few years now on combining art with design, which is, for design perspective, the art has to be part of the decorative element, but then it has to be stood out as an art itself, right? So
Right.
how do you combine it? What makes an art be a good piece support for the whole design interior?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what our specialty is and our key. Like I said, we started as art consultants, and we've been so blessed to work with some of the top interior designers in the world. Yalbu Pusherberg, Haider Sadeke, Dan Ricketts out of LA. A lot of the designers we've worked with, and also local, Kezia Karen, Mickey Fuentes. I've actually worked with quite a few, both local and foreign interior designers. And so it's working with them as to looking at the space, what is my taste, what art we select reflects the designer's taste or looks great in their space, as well as the client likes it. So you've got a three-pronged approach, right? And when you have that sort of symbiotic working together, it looks fabulous when it all comes together. We did a pop-up exhibition for one of the luxury brands earlier this year at the Lancome, and it was showing their bags, right? But yeah, Kezia Kieran was the designer. We were the art consultant. So, and then we had all of the exotic skins collection, and it was fabulous. I mean, we had free reign with the art that looked good, and it worked between fashion, between art, between design.
In your experience, talking about fashion, like what kind of big names in fashion that is very close connected with the art world and doing a lot of collaboration in their design?
Obviously Louis Vuitton. You've
Oh,
got the Louis Vuitton Museum. They do every year the collaboration on their bags. Yayoi Kusama, Jeff Koons, Murakami. I
oh,
think Louis Vuitton's probably one of the top that does a collaboration almost every other year with one of the, I mean, we're talking top artists in the world. So Louis Vuitton, definitely.
have they worked with Indonesian artists by any chance?
They have on sometime for like charity auctions and things like that. Hopefully we will we'll have that chance sometime.
What
But
about
Louis,
the
yeah.
brand that did a collaboration on making a scarf with Indonesian artist? Is that Louis
Yes,
Vuitton?
I'm sorry. Yeah, of course that was Louis Vuitton too. Echo. How could I forget that? Yes. It wasn't a
Econogroho.
bag, it was a scarf. Yeah, Echo Nugroho. So yeah, so they have worked with Indonesian artists. Thank you.
What do you think that make Indonesian art scene is unique in the eye of the world? Because we are always compete with China, right? I mean, in this region, China art is like really like gigantic. And
Yeah.
how Indonesia, stand unique in the eye of the world?
That's a tough question. I'm not so sure what the answer to that is.
What is our
Um,
unique as Indonesian art? Like how can we win?
Well, I think the perfect example is the Echo Nugroho scarf at Louis Vuitton. Because if you look at it, it talked about the coffee plantations, it talked about the fishermen, it talked about, it was, but the way he drew it, it could almost be, yeah, a bit out of space type look, but it was still, the meaning still had local connections. So, and like I said, I think it's what we talked about earlier, is it has to be of an international appeal, but yet can still speak to the local collectors. And I think Indonesia, we've got so many, I mean, it's a huge archipelago. There's so many stories to tell.
Okay, what is your upcoming project? Can you share us?
Well, we just finished the 30 Under 30, which was young female artists. We're really trying to work on doing, because now with, the lockdown, people obviously can't visit galleries. So we're really making a push towards the online aspect, social media. As well as our website. The next project we have coming up is designed for COVID. It's going to be an exhibition of installation artists or performance artists. So performance artists as art. So like photographs by Arapmani's art, photographs by FX Horsono. So we're working with a young curator in Bandung. That will be an online exhibition in July, and then in August we're going to have an exhibition of Indonesian artists abroad. So it will be foreign artists that have Indonesian heritage. So like Sinta Tantra, Adam De Boer from LA. There's quite a few international artists practicing that actually are of Indonesian heritage. So the way that they look at Indonesia as, for lack of a better word, a foreigner, even though they have Indonesian blood, they haven't lived here, right? So the way that they look at Indonesia is different than way in Indonesian art. So that's the next two exhibitions we have coming up.
Now, Sinta is an interesting artist, and she's a dear friend. I know her personally, thanks to you. And she's a Balinese. For those of you who doesn't know, she's a Balinese, live in UK, and then she's becoming quite worldly famous. Um, no, she's known through her geometric way of making her artwork. Now, Deborah, how come this series of geometric painting with fun color becoming a world taste? Why does the world love it? And how does she bring the Indonesian side of her through
Yeah.
her art?
Well, I think if you look at it, Shinta is known as a colorist, right? So the way she mixes the colors is brilliant, right? It's not that easy. Like doing abstract art is very difficult. She also has a sense of symmetry and balance to her painting. She's very zen, right? And so if you look at her paintings, they're always very balanced, very zen-like, whether colorful or the more muted tones. She made her name as doing public art. So she's worked very hard. Like we said, the Canary Wharf Bridge. She has worked with Hyundai with a few projects in Korea on public art spaces. She was just at the Sharjah Biennale. She was at the Pakistan Karachi Biennale. So she's really made her name on the public art sphere. And we're about to launch. She's just done an amazing project here in Jakarta, which unfortunately because of COVID, you can't see yet. But watch this space. She's just done a brilliant project here in Jakarta of public art. And I
Okay.
think that's the difference is she's really worked hard on the public art side, as well as her, practice of paintings, as well as sculptures. She's definitely one to watch.
Okay, now in your company, ISA Art Advisory and Design, what is the current objective? I mean, are you still looking for new talent, new young artists, or how can they participate to be chosen in your company?
Yeah.
Is there any
Um,
way to email you or send you their artwork?
I think the best thing is to send us our artwork. We're always looking for new artists, and especially for like our corporate projects, because we're looking at something a little bit different. And so, and like I said, generally with corporates, prices are not so strong. So by its very nature, it has to be young, up and coming artist, right? And so we're always looking for young artists. Send us your link on Instagram, email it to us. I mean, we're always looking, and you never know when you're going to find it. And art is all about taste. Even if it's not selected by us, it doesn't mean it's not good. It's just not our taste, right? So if you see different galleries have different taste, right? So don't give up, but it just has to do, is it the right fit for the right project or the right timing?
Okay, well, let's finish to our discussion today. Can you tell us about the art behind you? What is that? That looks interesting. The
Ah,
painting.
this is actually nonconformist art from the Soviet Union. This is one of the first paintings I ever bought by an
Wow.
artist named Ernst Nesvesny. He's like the Effendi of contemporary art. So he's more known as a sculptor, so it's got a very sculptural aspect as well. But yeah, so my collection started out with Russian art, and I bought it long before I moved here, and it's
Can you
still my favorite.
can you show the whole painting? Whose new son 27 would like to see it?
I, my daughter's trying to tell me how to do this. Okay, there you go.
That.
But if you Google him, he's very famous. In fact, he was the artist that did Khrushchev's.
Oh, what's going on?
Okay, my daughter's trying to help me get the whole painting. There you go.
Wait, her
Okay,
daughter famous is Putri Indonesia finalist Kalista Iskandar.
that's another story. That's
That's
another
another
story.
story.
Yeah. So,
Wow. Things.
Nesvesny is actually a very famous Russian artist. In fact, in the 1960s, he was one of the first contemporary artists after the fall of Stalin. And there
Wow.
was an exhibition called the Menage exhibition. And Khrushchev went in and said, "This is blasphemous, shut it down." And Nesvesny stood up to him and said, "You may be the premier of Russia, but I am the premier of this exhibition. We shall talk as equals." Very famous confrontation, of which he could have been shot, but he wasn't. He and Khrushchev became friends. And then Khrushchev's gravestone was actually sculpted by Ernst Nesvesny. So that's my personal taste. So art's all about taste, and it's about what you love and the story that it tells, and knowing the artist. I knew him personally when he was alive. So, relationships with artists are always very fun as well.
wow, talking about personal taste, I'm scared to show you the art behind me.
Which one is it? Very nice also.
Yeah, you recognize the artist?
Yeah, it's wait, which one is it from here? I can't tell it from, oh yeah, of course. And Antonio Sinaga,
Antonio
right?
Sinaga.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, I
Their
like it
photography.
because it's a one of the photography art that I bought in Art Bazaar long time ago. And I just like the fact that he show, this photography with all the Jesus face, right? And everybody wearing the Jesus face. That's the series of the collection at that time. I remember that pop song, "What If Jesus Is One of Us." Who sing
Hmm.
that song? It's a
That one I
famous.
don't know. I'm not into music, but
Well, it's in the pop song from the 90s, I think. "What If Jesus Is One of Us." And I
Mhm.
looked at that painting, that artwork, and I remember that, oh, that's an interesting. And I do believe that in this life that maybe Jesus can walk among us, like in the history said. So I think that, yeah, that's personal. Actually, you're right.
Yeah,
um,
exactly. It speaks to you, and what may speak to me may not speak to you, and vice versa. But that's what makes it interesting, and that's what gives artists opportunities. If we all had the same taste, it'd be very boring.
it's Alanis Morissette. Yeah, also
Yeah.
showing.
Yes. So
So, uh, just let's close this conversation. And then for all of you who are watching us, a graphic designer, inspired photographer, or people who just really want to try to do art. So find your story and
yeah,
then find a way to put it into the medium. Medium is like photography or sketch or drawing or knitting, isn't it?
could be.
Embroidery.
No, textile. There is a lot of textile artists. Suti is one of the most famous
Ah,
Ghanaian textile artists. It goes for millions of dollars. So yes.
see? So textile, name it, even ceramic, give it a try. I mean, it's
Yeah.
quite out there, so you have less competition. If you make it, then that's it,
Yeah.
you'll be
You'll be the
successful.
first.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing your knowledge, your insight, and then your perspective about art. I hope this will help all of the viewers today to get a little bit idea about art. And even though you're just a social media influencer like Alex, you can be famous if you find your voice and originality, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's always so much fun.
What is your Instagram, company Instagram account for those of them who wants to send it, the
Yeah.
artwork? Yeah. What?
EasaArt.id.
Okay. So follow at isaart.id and then
Yes.
submit your artwork, and you never know, you could be the next artist, contemporary from this era.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Urs. Okay.
Bye.
Oh, okay. And you can put it in the comment and pin it.
Yeah, I will
Okay.
put it on the highlight. Yeah. So for those
Okay.
of you who see from the beginning, I'll put it on the highlight, and also Deborah highlight, and we will pin it, and then so you can rewatch the whole conversation again.
Okay. Cool. Thank you,
But
guys. Have a great
thank you.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.